All right. Okay, now we're gonna go over the side of the vehicle. So if you guys get Form B, this is probably where you guys are gonna start off. Okay. The first thing I would check for, I'll check my hood latch. I want to make sure that it's not cut, there's no loose or missing bolts, and it's properly secured in the closed position. From here, I'll go to my mirror mount. I'll check my mirror mount. I want to make sure that it's not cracked. I want to make sure it's not loose. There's no loose or missing bolts, and it's properly secured. The next thing I would check for is my mirrors. I'll check my mirrors. I want to make sure that they're not cracked. I want to make sure that they're clean. I also want to make sure that they're none missing and they're properly secured. From here, I'll go into my window. I'll check my window. I want to make sure my window isn't cracked. I want to make sure that it's properly secured. I'll check the weather seal around it. I want to make sure it's not cut, it's not dry rotted, and it's properly secured. From here, I'll check my door. I'll check my door for any damage. And I'll also make sure that my door opens properly. I'll open my door. I'll check my weather seal. I want to make sure that my weather seal isn't cut, isn't dry rotted, and it's properly secured. I'll check my door hinges. I want to make sure that they're not cracked. There's no loose or missing bolts. And I'll pull up and down my door to make sure I don't have any excessive play. Then I'll make sure that my door closes properly. The next thing I would check for is my cab handle. Check my cab handle. I want to make sure it's not cracked, it's not bent, it's not loose. There's no loose or missing bolts, and it's properly secured. From here, I'm gonna go to my cab steps. I'll check my cab steps. I want to make sure they're not cracked. I want to make sure there's no loose or missing bolts, and also that they're free of debris. Debris meaning mud, snow, or anything that could cause me to slip. The next thing I would check for is my def tank. I'll check my def tank. I want to make sure that it's not cracked. I'll make sure it's not leaking. There's no loose or missing bolts, and it's properly capped in the closed position. The next thing I would check for is my fuel tank. I'll check my fuel tank. I want to make sure that my fuel tank isn't cracked. I'll check for any leaks. I want to make sure there's no loose or missing bolts, and it's properly secured. I also want to make sure that it's properly capped. I'll check my fuel cap. Inside my fuel cap, I should have a T-bar, my safety chain, and my rubber seal. And want to make sure that that's properly secured in the closed position. I'll check my fuel tank straps. I want to make sure they're not cracked. There's no loose or missing bolts. Also want to make sure that the rubber seal is present to prevent any metal to metal contact, and it's properly secured. From here, I'm gonna come in between my cab and my box to make sure that it's free of any debris. I'll check my hydraulic cylinder and want to make sure it's not cracked, it's not leaking, there's no loose or missing bolts, and it's properly secured. Then I'm gonna go up to my canopy. I'll check my canopy, want to make sure it's free of any cracks. There's no cracked or damaged welds, and it's properly secured. From here, I'm gonna go to my tarp arm. I'll check my tarp arm, want to make sure it's not cracked, it's not bent, there's no loose or missing bolts, and it's properly secured. The next thing I would check for is my sideboard. I'll check my sideboard, want to make sure it's not cracked or missing, and it's properly secured. From here, I'll check my strobe light. I want to make sure my strobe light is not cracked. I don't have any cracked, loose, or missing lenses, and they're properly secured. I have a clearance light right here that is amber in color. I do want to mention that I have amber to the front and red to the rear. I'll make sure that my clearance light isn't cracked. I don't have any cracked, loose, or missing lenses, and it's properly secured. The next thing I would check for is my box. I'll check my box. Want to make sure that it's not cracked. I don't have any cracked or damaged welds, and it's free of any holes. From here, I'll check my DOT reflective tape. I'll check my DOT reflective tape. Want to make sure it's clean and visible and of the proper color. From here, I'm gonna come into my box frame. I'll check my box frame. Want to make sure that it's free of any cracks. There's no cracked or damaged welds, and it's properly secured. Then I'll check my spacer in the middle. I'll check my spacer. Want to make sure my spacer isn't cracked or damaged. It's not missing, and it's properly secured. The next thing I would check for is my frame. I'll check my frame. Want to make sure that my frame is free of any cracks. There's no loose or missing bolts, and also want to make sure it's free of any illegal welds. Next thing I would check for is my battery box. I'll check my battery box. Want to make sure it's not cracked. There's no loose or missing bolts, and it's properly secured in the closed position. Inside my battery box, I do want to mention I have 3 maintenance-free batteries. I'll check my 3 maintenance-free batteries. I'll check the terminals, the posts for any corrosion. I'll also check my electrical wires to make sure I don't have any cut, burnt, or exposed wires, and that they're properly secured. I'll also check the batteries, that they're properly mounted down against movement, and they're properly secured. The next thing I would check for is my hydraulic oil tank. I want to make sure my hydraulic oil tank isn't cracked, it's not leaking, and it's properly capped in the closed position. From here on, I'm gonna come to my splash guard. I'll check my splash guard. I want to make sure my splash guard isn't cut, it's not hanging, there's no loose or missing bolts, and I have proper clearance from my tires. From here on, I would like to mention everything that I would expect under my vehicle. So pause right there. All right.